Hello, my name is John Rayfield with Rayfield Communications. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how to configure a cBridge controller for proper operation. Most of the configuration options are set up using a web browser interface running on a computer on the same network to which the cBridge controller is connected. So the first step is to set up the cBridge controller with the proper IP address and other parameters so that it can be accessed by a web browser. We do this by connecting a monitor and a keyboard directly to the cBridge controller. The controller uses standard connectors, a PS2 style connector for a keyboard, and a 15-pin mini D-sub connector for the VGA monitor. Once you have these connected to the controller, power up the controller with the on-off button on the front panel of the controller. Now, as the controller boots up, you'll see quite a bit of data that's being printed to the screen as the Linux operating system on which the cBridge application runs does boot. Once the cBridge controller is finished booting and you're ready to start configuring it, you'll have a login prompt. It says login as. At this point, we want to type in the word root and press enter on the keyboard. You'll now enter the default password. You'll notice as you enter the password, you do not see it printed on the screen. This is for security reasons. Press enter. We should now end up with another prompt ending with a hash or pound symbol. We now want to type in the word RN network, RNNETWORK, and press enter. We now should have another prompt again, the command prompt. Now at this point you can type the word help and we'll get a list of the various commands that are used to configure the cBridge controller at this point. We'll just start at the top and work our way down. The first item to set is the DHCP status. Now, if you want to see what the status is before you actually change anything, you can type the first letter of the command for DHCP, D, and press enter. Now in this case, this particular controller is already configured, but we'll go through the steps anyway. You'll notice here now that it says DHCP is now disabled. If I want to change that, I would type the letter D, space, and then either on or off. In this case, we'll say off. I press enter and it says it is now disabled. I'm going to type the word help again so I can get my screen back with all of the help commands. The next one on the list is the IP address to be used as a gateway. This is the letter G. To set the address, I type G, space, and then the IP address. In this case, I want 192.168.0.253. I press enter, and it tells me that it is now set to that address. As you can see in the list of commands, the next one down is the IP address of the box or the controller. We type I, space, and then the controller IP address that we want to use. Now in this case, I'm just going to type I and hit enter to see what the box is already set to. And it says IP address of this box is 192.168.0.213. I'm going to leave it at this address, but I am going to show you how again to set this. We would type I space 192.168.0.213 and press enter. And it says that the box is now set to 192.168.0.213. I'm going to type help again to get my full screen back of help commands. Netmask is the next one that we would type. The netmask is going to vary depending upon the specific system that you're operating on, but in many cases it is going to be 255.255.255.0, which is the netmask for the networking that I am connected to here. My next one is a DNS server. We type S space, and the one that I usually use is 4.2.2.2. That is a public domain name server address. So we're now set for that. The next one in the list, E for TLNet server, is not necessary to set up when setting the cBridge controller up for a MOTOTRBO system, so we skip that. The next one in the list as well we can skip, that is T, specify the Ethernet device to configure. This is already being done for us kind of automatically, since there is only one Ethernet device on this controller. At this point we want to select W. You'll notice in the list it says write data to the disk. So we write it to the disk. Now we type L for load, and we read the settings back from the disk. Now we want to change the computer OS config files. So we type C and hit enter. And that will have changed them. Now I'm going to type help again to get my screen back. And you'll notice that there is a K for restart networking on computer. This will restart the Ethernet network if we have changed the IP address on the machine. So we type K and we wait for it to go through these steps. And we are back to our command line. Now at this point you'll notice an R for report current settings. This gives us a complete list of the IP address of the controller, the gateway IP address, the netmask, the domain name server, and whether DHCP is on or off. And again, the last two items there, TLNet server and device name for the Ethernet device, we can ignore. But this gives us a quick view of the parameters to make sure they're correct. If everything looks good, then we're finished. We can now type help again, and you'll notice that you can exit this screen with an X or a Q. So I'll type X and hit enter. I'm now back to the root localhost address, and at this point it's always best to reboot the machine. So we type reboot. That completes the initial configuration of the cBridge controller. The next step will be to access the cBridge controller from a browser to finish the configuration.